When someone dies for a few minutes, meaning their heart stops beating and they stop breathing, it's known as clinical death. While death is a gradual process, a few minutes without oxygen is enough to cause a cascade of events in the body. Here's a detailed breakdown of what happens during those critical moments. When the heart stops beating, blood ceases to circulate throughout the body. This means no oxygen is delivered to vital organs, including the brain, which is incredibly sensitive to changes in oxygen levels. The brain is the first organ to be affected by a lack of oxygen. Neurons, or nerve cells, start to die within minutes of oxygen deprivation, typically within 3 to 5 minutes, although this can vary depending on factors like body temperature and overall health. Without oxygen, the brain's electrical activity begins to cease. This is why EEGs, or electroencephalograms, will show no brainwave activity in the immediate aftermath of clinical death. The brain begins to shut down in a process known as cerebral ischemia. At this point, the individual is considered clinically dead, although biological processes continue in the body for a short time. Without oxygen, cells in the body begin to die. In the brain, this leads to the breakdown of cellular structures. Without oxygen, ATP, the energy currency of cells, can't be produced, leading to anaerobic metabolism. This process causes a buildup of lactic acid, which can cause further damage to tissues. The body enters a metabolic crisis. With no oxygen to fuel normal cellular processes, the body switches to anaerobic respiration, producing lactic acid, which can cause the blood's pH to become more acidic, a condition known as acidosis. This makes the environment even more hostile to cellular function. Some people who are revived after being clinically dead for a few minutes report vivid experiences such as a feeling of floating outside their body, a sense of peace, or even encounters with deceased loved ones or spiritual beings. While these experiences are deeply personal, there are several possible explanations. When the brain is deprived of oxygen, the brain may produce vivid hallucinations or altered states of consciousness due to chemical imbalances. Neurotransmitters like serotonin and endorphins, which are associated with mood and perception, may be released in response to the extreme stress of dying, potentially creating intense feelings of euphoria or visions. One hypothesis is that a release of chemicals like DMT or dimethyltryptamine, which occurs naturally in the brain, could play a role in these experiences. Some researchers have speculated that this could explain the sensation of encountering beings of light or traveling through a tunnel, though there is no definitive evidence for this. When a person is successfully resuscitated, whether through CPR defibrillation or other medical interventions, blood flow returns to the brain and other organs. If the heart is restarted, blood begins circulating again, delivering oxygen to tissues. However, the longer the brain goes without oxygen, the greater the risk of permanent damage. If revival happens quickly, within a few minutes, the chances of full recovery are higher. Once oxygen is restored, the brain can sometimes swell due to the rapid reoxygenation. This is known as cerebral edema. If brain cells have been damaged, they may swell and lose function, which can lead to long-term neurological problems. Some individuals experience a condition called post-cardiac arrest syndrome, which involves a combination of brain injury, heart dysfunction, and organ failure. This can cause confusion, memory loss, difficulty speaking, or even paralysis, depending on how much time the brain was deprived of oxygen. If a person is revived after a few minutes, there may be some cognitive effects, like short-term memory loss or difficulty concentrating, as the brain recovers from the lack of oxygen. In more severe cases, permanent damage to brain regions responsible for memory, coordination, or speech can occur, though this is more likely if the heart stopped for an extended period, say 10 minutes or more. When the heart stops beating, other organs, especially the kidneys and liver, are at risk of damage. These organs may not recover fully even after the heart is restarted, leading to further complications. Many people who survive after being clinically dead for a few minutes report profound psychological effects. The experience can change their perspective on life, sometimes causing a deeper sense of spirituality, a reduced fear of death, or a desire to live life more fully. If a person cannot be revived within a few minutes, the process of biological death continues. This leads to decomposition. After clinical death, if there is no intervention, cellular breakdown continues. Autolysis, the self-digestion of cells, and putrefaction, the breakdown of organic matter by bacteria, begin to occur. Rigor mortis, the stiffening of muscles, sets in after a few hours. If no oxygen is delivered for a prolonged period, irreversible damage occurs to the brain, and the brain enters a state of brain death, where all brain function ceases permanently. At this point, even if the heart is restarted, the person cannot be revived. When you die for a few minutes, your body undergoes a series of rapid and intense physiological changes. Without blood flow, your brain and organs begin to shut down, and depending on how quickly you are revived, there can be a range of outcomes, from full recovery to permanent brain damage. The experiences reported by some people who have been clinically dead for a short time are still a subject of debate, but they may be linked to the brain's response to extreme stress and oxygen deprivation. Have you ever heard of or experienced any kind of near-death experience? Some people describe it as life-changing,